let's do this thing.
Okay. Well, we're back, everybody. This is our second House representative candidate. We are pleased to be sitting with the Democratic candidate for House District 25, Ryan Marquardt. Ryan, rather than me trying to run through your bio, why don't you go ahead and talk about your education and everything now?
Okay, well, my name is Ryan Marquardt. I'm a fifth-generation Madison County farmer, father of 2 youngish children, and I'm a lifelong Iowan. I went to Iowa State University. My background's in community and regional planning. I have a master's degree in agriculture that I got there, and then I stuck around for a while. I also picked up my certificate in public management. Over the years, I've worn lots of different hats. I mean, I've been farming for 13 years. I have just recently finished a stint as the general manager of the Iowa Food Cooperative in Des Moines. I've served on a lot of boards over the years, from the Iowa Food Cooperative, where I had served as both the president and the vice president of the board, and then many years ago I served as the president of the Iowa Network for Community Agriculture. I serve on Practical Farmers of Iowa. They have a beginning farmer selection committee in which they help mentor beginning farmers, and they kind of help select which ones they think are ready for the mentorship program. So I participate in that program quite a bit. So, I mean, literally, lots of different things over the years. And I've also worked in the NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Office. And I've been church council president. I've been a township trustee when I lived in Jasper County. So lots of stuff. I mean, all over the place. I didn't grow up. I grew up in Ames, so I'll admit that. My dad graduated from Iowa State University, or got done at Iowa State University in 80, and that was the height of the farm crisis. So my parents, they'd married up there, and they decided, Grandma said, hey, don't come back because we're not making any money. So I grew up in Ames, but I'm the only one to come back down here. So we're just trying to keep the tradition alive. I mean, 5 generations, you don't really want to break the chain. No. So, yeah. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean,
well, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, kind of leading right on into it, yeah. So you've done a number of different things.
Yeah.
And so now, why are you running for the House District 25?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of things that our current legislature kind of has blind spots to, or things that they just don't seem to prioritize. I would love to see just a little bit more of a balanced approach toward how we're doing things. I'd love to see a little bit more transparency, and I would really like to see us return to a kind of a local control mindset, because I feel like we have, especially with some of those COVID issues, we've really kind of drifted away, and there's some other issues on the horizon that we kind of have moved away from local control being, kind of Iowa's mantra or mindset. So let's look at the local control issues. So for instance, like the Iowa Utilities Board is currently debating whether or not to give eminent domain rights, the ability to take private property away from individuals for the siting of wind and solar installations. I have no problem with an individual that wants to participate in the wind and solar program, but eminent domain is for me a bridge too far. And I would stand with several GOP senators that have said that they want to come out against that, and I'm willing to cross aisles to make something like that happen. That I think okay, I don't mind having these out there, but eminent domain is a bridge too far for me. We're going to keep that control. I want to keep that control in the county, or with this thing we see with, we've seen the back and forth with the governor in schools. Personally, I would rather have seen her take the approach of it's the school's decision. They know their terrain better. They should set up the parameters in terms of what the definition is for them to have in school or out of school or hybrid or whatever. I mean, kind of having this wishy-washy, this initial standard, some things didn't fit in, we're going to do that. So let's get back to the local control. That's really one of my major priorities.
Very good. Well, thank you. Tom?
What are your goals for the 2-year term if you're elected?
Well, I mentioned some of the local control issues, but I have been an advocate for small and medium-sized farms for a long time through a lot of the organizations I've been a part of, and one of the little side projects I've been working on is called the Right to Farm Small. And so we've been looking at the code to figure out what we can do to remove barriers for small and medium-sized farmers to operate in this state. We're looking for things that just don't make sense, or like or like if there's going to be a regulation, that the regulation is right sized for the industry or for the application. So for instance, like if somebody goes and gets like a home warehousing permit, well, we don't have those warehousing permits anymore. So an individual who wanted to store meat in, like on a facility, they'd pay the same price to have like 3 chest freezers inspected as a 500,000 square foot facility would to get inspected.
Mm.
Or like if you're a poultry processor, for instance, like you can, in the state of Iowa, unlike red meat, where you have state inspected, you have like a local locker, and it may have state inspected days, so they could have retail sales for people who wanted to bring meat into the building. Poultry plants, they have to have 2 separate plants. You have a custom inspected plant and a state inspected plant, and like there's like, for instance, there's a place in Iowa, out in western Iowa, that has 2 plants side by side for that same reason. I'm like, this is just insane. Why would you ever do that? So I think there are a lot of opportunities to do things like run deer in the off season through these poultry plants that are idle. I think there are lots of opportunities to allow things like mobile pasteurization units for dairymen, because if they're out there renting ground, they have to have a full parlor on that piece of ground. Well, it's not that hard to do mobile units. We could do that in the state of Iowa. There's a lot of little opportunities like that out there.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Tom. Or am I? I might be.
You're
up
up,
here.
Dave.
That's
I think.
cool.
Jeez. I'm one behind.
No, you're fine.
So you've touched on a number of different things.
Sure.
What would you say are the big issues that face the district, and since we're here in Madison County, specifically to Madison County?
Let's start with the district in general. The reality is this district is really diverse. I mean, like, you've got Norwalk, so you have a suburban, a really suburban community, and then you get like Earlham and Winterset, which are more bedroomy-ish.
Sure.
No offense, they're a little more bedroomy, but then they also have some of their own unique identity. Winterset especially has like a tourism component that is kind of a really unique factor for a small town across Iowa. So you have the kind of this very diverse spectrum of needs and wants for a county. Some things that are really consistent across the district are roads and bridges. Both of these 2 counties have a large number of especially bridges that are in need of repair and update. And rural roads across both counties is a consequential issue whenever you talk to people. Always comes up. I think there are some ways that we could look at the funding equation in terms of how money is being allocated in the state of Iowa, and maybe try to move some of that more from the state level down to the local level for these projects. Certainly, I'm open to that. Other challenges, like in Madison County, there's some cool opportunities, like with the airport and the reality that we have the potential for a future regional airport here for corporate style jets, because the Ankeny Airport is basically at capacity and there's no other facility like that. So that just the development of that creates all sorts of opportunities that I'm sure Tom just salivates over.
Well, and there's 60 acres of development ground right beside the airport.
It. Yep.
And obviously, when you look at the Des Moines Airport's choice to expand, we can kind of hand in glove here. If we have a place for the corporate jets to come, then that helps Winterset expand, and it helps Des Moines Airport expand too.
Yeah, I mean, the other issue that's always is maintaining identity while growing, and that's going to be universal across the district. How do you maintain identity faced with all this growth?
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan. Next question. Madison County Development Group works to build local economic activity and commercial and industrial tax base. We need more jobs out here, and we need more industrial and commercial property for the school, for the community, for the county. What do you see in your role as a state representative that'll help boost that growth in Madison County?
Sure. I see my job as being an advocate for you guys. I mean, if you have things you need, I will work my butt off to get them done. I think there are some ways that we can do it. I think there's always labor force issues that can be addressed through supporting our community colleges. Those people tend to stay in Iowa more. That's clearly a place that we should be investing. I have said it once, I'll say it again. Childcare access, affordable childcare access, is an economic development issue because it's a workforce issue. So wherever we have that, and when we have that piece in place, we're in a much better place from a workforce availability standpoint. So those are some just generic issues that just affects just about everybody in Iowa, and that would certainly benefit this county. I mean, we have tourism issues that factor in. I could easily see where components of the right to farm small that I talked earlier would play in to make these small agritourism type businesses that would dovetail nicely with the Madison County tourism environment a little more possible on the landscape. I mean, we have between the cidery and 2 wineries, I mean, pumpkin patches, we have, this great foundation that we can build on and really expand.
Excellent. Thank you.
Kind of a pertinent issue right now,
Sure.
COVID-19. The state of Iowa, Madison County, we have public health departments.
Yes.
And so with this virus challenge that we're facing now, how will you, as a House District 25 rep, support the efforts Madison County, state of Iowa, in terms of the current virus situation?
So I think it's really important that you have an open line of communication with your county health professionals to make sure that you know where they're at. You have a baseline. I think it's important that we have consistent data at the state level, because that data is being used as a decision makers from our school districts to everybody on a local level. And then my job is to be kind of a go-between and to make sure that we have the resources necessary to make sure that we have the PPE in place, that we have the ventilators if God willing, if we should need them, and to just be that interface between all these different parts, and to make sure that if resources aren't moving or there's some blockage, it's my job to figure out what that is and why.
Right.
Excellent. You'd mentioned earlier some of your goals as a state rep. What's your opinion now of the status of the state of Iowa finances?
Sure. So the state of Iowa's finances are in a relatively good position. I mean, where we are at the moment. The reality is we don't know the full effect of what COVID will do. So we're still trying to kind of sort that out. We have a pretty conservative position that we've taken in terms of not using any cash reserves at the moment. But it's quite possible that we will have to use some cash reserves. So every year, for people at home, part of the budget is set aside as a cash reserve, and so we have at this point in time not touched that. So, I mean, I think, Lord willing, we'll be relatively okay. We got other things too on top of COVID. We have the economic fallout from the derecho. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, and so it's a very muddy picture. And I think it's not going to firm up until, especially we get after this next quarter. I mean, that's a big quarter for a lot of businesses. So we're honestly not going to really know where we're at until that's kind of behind us, sadly.
Thank you.
One of the things that we're dealing with here in Madison
Sure.
County is, especially with Madison County Development Group,
Yeah.
because we're about economic development, high-speed internet.
Oh, yes.
We're a pretty rural area.
Yep.
With the virus situation, it's become probably even more apparent of the importance of having high-speed internet
I hear you.
to as much areas we can. So from our standpoint, that's been one of our initiatives.
Yes.
What at the House level or could you do to kind of help assist us in this effort?
I mean, there's kind of two approaches. One that I think we might want to look at is the reality that we're facing in this world is that internet is a public utility and probably ought to be treated like one. And that means requiring the companies to put in the infrastructure. Barring that approach, the other way I would look at it was making sure that we do things like what we're doing in Madison County is we're making sure we have those connectivity studies in place. That makes a place more attractive to come into. I mean, for instance, at my own house, like my farm business, I use the internet extensively with it. When we moved to that farm, the state connectivity map said we're good. The company said we're good. Built the house, not good.
Yeah.
So we eventually, after a build out came by, we spent $4,500 out of our own pocket to bring the line a half mile to our house to be connected, because it's a legitimate business expense because we needed it for the business. But right now, I have 2 kids at home on it, and it's a lifeline. Like you really kind of need that. And in the way that the world works these days, from combines that need to be updated with a software update forever, like to to just watching television half the time anymore. It's increasingly a fact of life, and that's why I think ultimately we may be closer to the reality of that, just recognizing that it honestly is a public utility and we need to probably treat it like one.
Very good.
So.
Excellent. Well, Ryan, our time's nearly up here.
Oh.
I know. This is your moment
Sure.
to make a pitch to the folks that are watching to ask for their vote. So
Sure.
take it away for a minute or two here.
Sure. So, I'm Ryan Marquardt. I'm fifth generation Madison County farm father too, and I'm a lifelong Iowan. And I've said, really my priorities in this are to focus on transparency and local control issues at the Capitol. But I think there's also some things that we haven't talked about today is priorities that we're not meeting at the state level in terms of mental health care access and the juvenile mental health care system as an unfunded mandate that the state hasn't really put funds behind. And those are things that we need to not forget as we move forward, because those are really meaningful things that affect the quality of life for people in this state. I think that my background is diverse enough that I can help represent this broad district. Look, between the city planning, the public administration, and all the different hats I've worn over the years to help represent a district that includes Norwalk, Winterset, Macksburg, New Virginia. It runs the gambit of sizes, and it runs the gambit from rural to very urban. And I think that the background I bring to the table really helps to fit the needs of this district moving forward now and for what we're looking forward to build as we move forward. So, yeah.
Very good. Excellent.
Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Yeah.
We appreciate you stepping up to serve, and good luck here in the election.
No problem. I'm a glutton for punishment, so. I farm. So.